Legends has been out for so long that most veteran players think they've seen it all, but we've spent the last 2 years searching and collecting some of the most bizarre and advanced mechanics League has to offer that even the most seasoned LoL player doesn't know. So whether it's popping Fiora's ult in under a second, hiding animations with mastery emotes, or using secret indicators to help you execute targets, we're going to show you one secret mechanic for every single champion in League of Legends. So let's get started. Double camping used to be a pretty common way to dramatically increase your clear speed, but then Riot reduced the leash distance on camps to make the jungle role less mechanical and more macro-canical. But Fiddlesticks can actually still do Krugs over the wall at the same time as doing red buff. If you start chickens and level up your E second, you can aggro red buff, stand right at the Krug rule and reveal them with an E, and then drain both camps while smiting the big Krug before finishing them both off with another W. You can then clear all the micro Krugs with another sweep of your E, all of which massively increases your clear speed, making him the fastest jungler in the game. And whilst not all junglers can double camp, some jugglers can double their abilities. Lee Sin can literally throw out 2 sonic waves if he has enough ability haste and a rank 5 Q. And it's genuinely not even that hard to do. All you need is to wait for your first Q to expire, then use your W on either a ward or an ally as you reactivate it, and you can literally cast a second Q as you're flying through the air, which opens up arguably the most difficult combo in the game, where you flash insect someone into your second Q. Another champion that can use a double Q mechanic to do their most difficult combo is Yasuo, but unlike Lee Sin, this isn't an exploit, it's a feature. Yas's EQ animation can't be interrupted once it's been programmed in, and because the duration of your knockup is long enough to get one off, you can ult and EQ an enemy champion at the same time. So instead of using their EQ combos directly, challenge a Yasuo's E off a minion for the knockup and then plug in an EQ as their opponents are mid-air right before ulting them to pull off what Yas one tricks call a Beyblade. And if that isn't complex enough for you, you can EQ flash off a minion to guarantee the knockup and then follow up with the same mechanic, which is literally the most efficient way to deal damage with Yasuo's ult. But Echo's most skill-expressive mechanic is probably hitting parallel convergence. But the problem is, most of the time, the wind-up animation is extremely telegraphed and people just run away whenever they see you do it. But there are actually a ton of ways you can hide the animation from your opponent. The first way is to do it out of vision, which hides the animation and sound. But as you climb the ladder, people start clocking onto that, so you need an even more subtle trick. You can use your E's dash to cancel the W's animation, which in the heat of battle makes it almost impossible to see. But you can take this a step further. Once you've reached level 4 with him, you can do the same combo and mastery emote to hide the sound as well, concealing the ability completely. Nunu is another champion with a secret double interaction, but this time it's not what you think. Both Senna and Thresh drop souls they can pick up when they kill champions, and for champs made of 2 characters like Sejuani and Bristle, that's the name of her boar by the way, those rules still apply. But for some reason, Riot went out of their way to code Nunu and Willop as 2 separate characters, and so they drop 2 souls instead, which is a neat little interaction and sort of makes Senna Thresh a low-key counter to Nunu. Ivan's entire champ is designed around being the guy who can't damage jungle camps, but Rito makes up for that by letting him do Rift Herald over the wall. You want to throw Daisy into the pit and use her to auto Herald once, then move her out of the way so Herald charges toward you. In the meantime, put yourself in a brush so you're less obvious, and more importantly, so your autos get empowered. Then move Daisy so she sandwiches Herald between you and her, so Shelly turns to auto her, meaning you get to poke Herald in the eye constantly. Then all you have to do is keep using your E on Daisy to keep her healthy, and Q over the wall once Herald gets into smiting range so you can collect the crown jewel. But since we're on the topic of going over walls, Malphite is arguably the simplest champion in the game. He's literally just a rock, which is what makes him such a reliable top laner, because no matter how far behind you fall, your ult is always game-changing. But you can make it a little bit more game-changing. One of the secret mechanics only the Malphite masters know is that you can more than double the dash speed of Malphite's ult. You need to be dashing over a wall, which you want to be doing anyway for the element of surprise, but to give your enemies even less time to react, rather than ulting straight on top of them, you want to ult on top of the wall you're flying over. All you have to do is make sure your cursor is on the other side of the wall to you, so you don't essentially fail flash, but because the game thinks you're ulting only half the distance, you'll arrive there twice as fast. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, Set can insta-ult people if he yeets them into a wall that's too thick for him to fly over. The backbreaker animation just gets completely cancelled, and the AoE damage to champions around him gets applied immediately, which can really catch people off guard in the middle of a teamfight around Baron or Dragon, because it's just so fast it's basically instant. Speaking of going fast, Viego can stack Conqueror faster than any champion in the game. Because your W is an auto-attack reset and your passive gets you 4 stacks of Conqueror, Q auto W auto gets you max stacks in under a second. And as soon as you get more attack speed through items, this gets even more ridiculous. But when it comes to getting something done in under a second, Fiora by far and away takes the cake. Grand Challenge is undeniably one of the most impactful abilities in the game, but most people don't know how to proc it efficiently. Fiora pros can proc it in under a second, and that's because they understand one very simple trick. Fiora's passive gets procced by any active damage Fiora does, so any Tiamat item will also proc one of the vitals. It's also impossible not to proc a vital if you queue toward the corner of the square. Even though the indicator has gaps in it, you can't miss. So you should proc the first 2 vitals with autos, using your E on the second attack for the reset, then queue to the corner of the remaining 2 vitals, use the movement speed to get into the last quadrant, and use your Tiamat to finish it off. But you can take this even further. You can speed up the first 2 vitals by flashing right after the initial auto and using your E, which insta-attacks thanks to the animation cancel and speeds up the combo to the point it looks like the old Fiora ult. But one of the ways you can counter Fiora is by paying attention to her vitals indicators in lane. Especially in her ult, you can move to a wall so she can't proc one of her vitals and get her ultimate off. But there are actually a ton of secret indicators in the game you can abuse. You can always tell when Silence Q will knock someone up by paying attention to his axe. If it glows red, the knockup will apply, and if it doesn't, then only the damage will go through. The same is true for Zed's ult and Yon's E. The shuriken that hovers above someone's head after Zed ults will only appear if the follow-up damage will kill them, which you can use to know when to stop applying more damage. And Yon's E indicator splits in half and turns black when his return damage will execute the target. Indicators are super important because they give away information you can use to output the most damage possible. But how telegraphed an ability is has a similar relationship in reverse. Kind of similar to Echo, Renata's ult's animation is so overly telegraphed you can start moving out of the way of it before it's even spawned. But you can actually hide the direction of hostile takeover by using Handshake just before, which pretty much makes it impossible to predict. And the final secret we have for today is about how Tahm Kench is one of the only champions in the game who can increase the range of his abilities by buying items. Tongue Lash's range and speed scale with any size modifiers Tahm gets, which means items like Heartsteel can increase its range by up to 30%. And there are 2 reasons that's important. One, no matter how large Tahm is, the Tongue Lash will always take 0.33 seconds to get from beginning to end. So because it's traveling a greater distance in the same amount of time, as you increase your size, you make your Q less easy to dodge, which means Elixir of Iron's 15% increase in champion size is one of Tahm's biggest power spikes late game, simultaneously increasing his Q's range and giving his opponents less time to dodge it for as little as 500 gold. But on top of that, some absolute league geniuses have taken this a step further. If you look into some of the top Tahm Kench 1 tricks, you'll notice a lot of them going full AP, and that's because of this interaction. Once you've got extra tongue range, you can turn him into a poke machine because of the amazing AP scaling on almost all of his abilities and the enormous range he gets on his Q building tanky AP items like Riftmaker and Leandries. As always, all the incredible members of the League community who discovered and live for the advanced mechanics like this are in the description below and on screen right now, and I beg you to check them out because their brains are enormous and need to be celebrated. We will be making an endless number of these types of videos, so I really hope you enjoyed this one, learned something you didn't already know, and are excited for the next one. But until next time, good luck and have fun.